could be the end of Spider-Man.
Greetings, whoever this may concern. Christian Aguilar here, back with another movie review. And in today's movie review, I'm going to be continuing the hype train that is the road to Spider-Man No Way Home, which is tomorrow for me. Tomorrow, 10 p.m. Am I going to do Amazing Spider-Man and the Tom Holland movies? Maybe. I might, because they're two films each. I might just morph them into one video. So that'd be two videos. One video reviewing both Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and then the other video we're reviewing both Homecoming and Far From Home. I might just do that to kind of hurry up with the rush that it's coming in pretty soon. I mean, at 10 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to be sitting in the theater watching the movie No Way Home. My mind is going to be blown tomorrow at 10 p.m. It's close. It's here. I saw all the leaks online this morning, and I'm just like, no, get away. I've waited this long. I don't need it to be ruined for me on my YouTube homepage. So with that being said, I'm continuing the hype train with 2007 Spider-Man 3. This is unfortunately the end of Tobey Maguire's run as Spider-Man. It honestly ended prematurely a little bit. People say that about Andrew Garfield, but no, Tobey Maguire had more movies lined up. I think there was a rumored 4, and then there was, I think, a 5th movie. Possibly a 6th. I don't know about the 6th, but I know there was supposed to be a 4 and a 5. So it felt like there was way much more story to tell at the end of this third movie. I will say right off the bat, like everyone can predict and everyone has already said, this third cinematic outing for the Webhead does not hold up to the first 2 outings that he's had. One of the major problems for this movie, and I think everyone can agree with me on this, the addition of Venom. Not even Sam Raimi wanted Venom in this movie, alright? It was the studio, it was Sony that wanted to push Venom out to the public eye because Venom was a really hot commodity at the time and they wanted to sell as much toys as possible. So, who's a badass character that children would love to buy the toys for? Venom. Of course, Venom is Spider-Man's... a lot of people look at Venom to be Spider-Man's arch nemesis. It's actually Green Goblin or Doc Ock. But Venom is probably the most popular Spider-Man villain. So much so that he became his own anti-hero, which I personally don't really like. I didn't really like the Lethal Protector run in the 90s. I don't really like how they're approaching the Venom movies. I like Venom as a bad guy. And then I like when he turns to an anti-hero when he has to help Spider-Man fight Carnage. As the only time I like him as a hero, because that was really like the first example of like foe becomes friend. You know, it's like a bigger bad emerges. So once rivals have to team up to take that big bad down. And I love that storyline. I love that story arc. I believe that's Maximum Carnage. I love that story arc, and I really wanted to see the movies kind of build up to that. However, maybe in another 20 or 30 years, we'll see that on the big screen. But our first big screen debut for the character of Venom was not ideal. As much as I love the character of Venom, and I love to see him on the big screen, I respect Sam Raimi so much for saying that he always wanted to stick with having the Steve Ditko and Stan Lee villains, their rogues galleries that they came up with for Spider-Man. He said he was always familiar with them. You know, like Sandman, Mysterio, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, all the classic Ditko villains Sam Raimi wanted to focus on. So when the studio came and said, hey, just keep pushing him and nudging him, hey, put Venom in, he was like, alright, you want Venom? I'm gonna give you Venom. I'm probably gonna give you the shittiest Venom you've probably seen. And yeah, I mean, if this movie just focused, I've heard someone say this before, but if this movie just focused on Harry Osborn as the main antagonist, I think this third outing would have been really solid. To have Harry Osborn in this movie lose his memory after building up so much animosity towards Spider-Man, and especially towards Peter Parker because now he knows he's Spider-Man, I think there was a lot for them to work with there. However, the choice to have him lose his memory during a fight with Spider-Man, which is a badass fight, may I mind you. I loved it when I was younger and I still love it today when I rewatched it. The fact that Peter Parker in his casual outfit without his suit is swinging around fighting someone mid-air. I just think that's so badass, just to have Peter Parker able to, like, you know, shoot webs, swing around without the costume because he's protecting himself. I just think that's a badass scenario to put the character in. But when it comes back to Harry losing his memory, I just felt that was an easy cop-out to make him his best friend again just for a little bit, and then all the animosity comes back later. It just felt very half-ass. It really did. The moments I did love with Harry was when he was playing that manipulative puppet master, where he was basically telling MJ and forcing her to leave Peter and say that there's another guy. And then he comes in later and says that he's the other guy. Just builds so much tension, and it's just like a real dick move, to the point where I wish they fleshed that out more. I wish they let it breathe, you know? I wish they let that whole scenario live out a little longer. I wish we saw the trickster side of Harry Osborn. Him knowing these people since childhood, right? His closest friends, the ones he said he'd die for. How badly would he mess with them mentally? How big of a wrench would he be in their gears? I really wish this third movie explored that a little more and made Harry Osborn's character really sinister, possibly one of the greatest threats to Spider-Man and Peter Parker, because he knows both sides already. He can shake these worlds up like nobody's business, but he doesn't. Not really. Just a little bit, but not really. Not to the fullest. It was really unexpected to see them both team up when I was younger. However, I couldn't help but enjoy myself. I enjoyed this unexpected team up. And it felt right because we had 2 movies to build this relationship, to build this dynamic between Harry and Peter. And so when it came time to finally team up in both suits, felt kind of badass, I'm not gonna lie. But Venom just felt like that weird step sibling that really stood out. And it just like, you don't belong here. It feels like Venom should have had his own movie dedicated to him. But if they would have took out Venom and maybe kept Sandman as the big bad, you would have still had that awesome team up. And I think it would have hit a little bit more home if we would have saw Harry be the asshole that he was throughout the entire movie, and then at the end he realizes that Spider-Man didn't kill his father, right? So that happens, and then he teams up with Peter. I think that would have been awesome. Or you could go the second route, not have Sandman in there at all, and just focus the movie on Hobgoblin. I like to call him Hobgoblin, not New Goblin, because when I was younger, I always referred to Harry Osborn as Hobgoblin, because I'm like, oh, he's going to become Hobgoblin. Like, at the end of the second Spider-Man movie, I remember my dad saying, he becomes Hobgoblin. He's going to become Hobgoblin, because he found all the Goblin's equipment and stuff like that, right? So I always refer to him as Hobgoblin. So if you would have took out Sandman, if you want to go the second round, take out Sandman entirely and just have the movie focus on the trio, Mary Jane, Peter, and Harry. You have the movie focus on those 3 and have Harry be the villain. I think that would have made for a much more tight-knit third outing, especially if this wasn't supposed to be the grand finale of a trilogy. If there was supposed to be a number 4 and a number 5 coming out after this, a solo Harry focused story of him being the antagonist, I think would have worked as a Spider-Man 3 movie. This could have still worked with Sandman in there being the big bad, you know? But unfortunately, that's not how things rolled out. Before I get into the rest of my review, I realized I did not mention any of the cast members for this movie. Everyone is mostly the same, except for newcomers Topher Grace, Thomas Hayden Church, James Cromwell, and Bryce Dallas Howard. I did like Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman. Sandman's story was very compelling. Again, it follows that whole trend of being a tragedy. Green Goblin in the first movie had the same arc, with Norman falling from the top of being head of Oscorp and then, of course, losing the company. Doc Ock had the same arc too, where he was once a brilliant scientist, a brilliant doctor with a beautiful wife that has everything in the world until the experiment goes wrong and his world is turned upside down. So these are very much tragic stories that are being told for Spider-Man's villains, and I love that trend. So to have Flint Marko say that, hey, I'm not a bad guy, I just have bad luck, I really like that line, because yeah, there's a lot of people out there that their intentions aren't nasty. They just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, which sums it up to be bad luck, you know? But when it came to Topher Grace as Eddie Brock, I didn't feel that tragedy. I really didn't. I didn't feel that tragedy because I felt like he was never really on top. He wasn't at a certain position where he was comfortable. Eddie Brock was always trying to get to a place where he was comfortable. So that's why I never really felt like there was loss in his part. Even when Peter Parker exposed him to have a fake picture of Spider-Man in this movie, I thought that was really interesting and really brilliant for Peter to point that out. I was like, hey, that shit's photoshopped. But I felt like a lot that Eddie Brock lost wasn't impactful. You know, I felt like, well, you never really had that to begin with. He wasn't really a great photographer, nor was he a ladies' man. When I was younger, I thought him and Gwen Stacy were a couple in this. No, when I rewatched this, I figured out he just wanted to bang her throughout the entire movie. So it's not like he was dating her, like he said to James Cromwell, which plays her father, Captain Stacy. He says, oh, and I'm dating your daughter. You're not really dating his daughter. You had a cup of coffee once, and that was it, you know? And she even states that too. Again, it's like, I don't really feel any loss or true animosity coming from Eddie Brock's character. I did like how Willem Dafoe appears basically in every single installment in this movie, whether it be flashback or just like an illusion that Harry sees and he starts talking to him. I love that. I love that so much. And again, if they went with the whole Harry being the main antagonist for this movie, we could have had a little bit more of Willem Dafoe in this movie. We could have had him going back and forth with Harry, and them being the actual, and this being the actual kind of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type dynamic that Willem Dafoe had in the first movie. But maybe in an alternate universe, we have a Spider-Man 3 that's more Harry-centric, you know? And maybe with a little bit of Sandman in there. But I can see that being more Harry's film than the other two villains for sure. I thought the actors did great with what they had to work with. Thomas Hayden Church was an amazing Sandman. I hope he's in the new Spider-Man No Way Home because I know Sandman's in there. So I really hope he's in the new one for sure. Topher Grace tried his best with what he was given, but with a character that was purposely done to be shitty, just to get back at the studio, it was always a recipe for disaster. So with all that being said, I have to give this a solid rating of 3 out of 5 Skarsgårds. It is not the worst film. I'll tell you that right now. And it's definitely not the worst Spider-Man film. I'll also tell you that right now. It's decent. It's decent, it's enjoyable, it's fun. I still enjoyed myself with this movie despite all the nitpicks here and there. Not as good as the first two, obviously, but it's still enjoyable. If you haven't watched this movie in a long time and you grew up with it, I think you'd probably have a fun time going back and rewatching it. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for reaching to the end of it. What do you think of 2007 Spider-Man 3? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know your opinions down below. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe to support this little side hobby I'm doing. The Rendered Image every Thursday and Sunday nights, 8:30 p.m. live on YouTube. Link to the channel will be down below in the description where it's always resting, waiting for you to tap on it. So go down there and tap on that link. I hope you're all safe and well out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.